lastly, we have a somewhat well-known movie. This one may not be able to compete with Sharknado, but it does have a shark in it. And this is the 1975 classic directed by Steven Spielberg, Jaws. Basically, this pissed off shark is attacking people, and this one local sheriff is not happy about it. And of course, the mayor of this island town makes most of the money during the summertime with vacation is coming in. Wants to keep the beaches open despite the attacks, and there's some tension there. A lot of boring stuff happens. Then things actually get interesting toward the second half of the movie, when it's basically just the actors on a boat, and they find themselves face to face with the shark, just trying to, and this thing just keeps coming after them again and again, and it's that's probably one of the there's a lot of tension going on, and I really enjoyed the second half of this movie. It's and that probably explains my view as well. I found the first half, I mean, it was decent a lot of the time, but there were some scenes which just, I don't know, didn't do anything for me. And I know this is a classic movie, and I definitely think it's a decent movie, but it took a little for it to really get going for me. And like I said, when the three guys are on the boat, the sheriff, the hunted guy, Quint, and the oceanographist, Hooper, that was when the movie really picked up for me, and I pretty much enjoyed it from that point on. But I don't know, otherwise it's, first half just didn't do much for me. But what were your thoughts on this one?
I'm more or less on the same track as you. It is, I mean, clearly it's one of those movies that is just considered a classic by all means. It's directed by such a popular director, and I don't think there's too many people out there who doesn't know what Jaws is. So just by being considered a classic, I think a lot of people tend to call it this great movie, and maybe in some people's minds it is a great movie. It's certainly a movie that my father would watch. Not that he watches a lot of movies, but it's a movie that he had seen a bunch of times, and so I guess that's a big thing for him. I think it's a little bit slow moving at times. Like it's never like dull, but I think just some scenes just drag on a bit too long. Though it is quite suspenseful, especially with all the different scenes involving the actual shark. They do kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, I think, for the most part. I mean, the music in the movie stands out. It's one of those things where no matter what you're doing, you could be playing in a pool and someone starts trying to do the Jaws music, Yeah, I guess it has that effect on people. So whoever did the music in the movie, I didn't actually look, but clearly they did a great job with it, and I'll say that much for it. But yeah, no, I think it's a decent movie, just not one that I enjoy over all these other movies that we discussed. So, well, I'm not talking about today's show. I mean, I think it's way better than Sharknado. I hope you're joking when you say Sharknado is better.
Well, you will find out. Because I guess my main point is, which movie is more enjoyable?
Jaws.
Yeah, and Jaws is a often dry movie, despite all the water. So, yeah.
Did you write that down?
I actually did not. My wit does not. It's just natural. Anyway, this is a movie that you may or may not have seen. It's sort of like a ripoff of Jaws that came out a few years later, starring Richard Harris, called Oka from 77. And that movie, I thought, in my opinion, I legitimately thought that movie did a better job of showing like the fight between nature's animal and is just compared to the size of in that movie it's a whale, but just nature versus men, and this movie does a decent.
Who's the real animal though?
Well, I will say Quint the hunter, he grew on me a bit, but a lot of the time that character just sort of annoyed me. Is the guy really worth $10,000? I mean, I don't know. I guess if the town isn't that much of a desperate situation, why not pay him? But
I guess you'd have to also consider back in the mid-70s, $10,000 would be quite a lot of money.
indeed.
At least compared to now.
No, I'll say those three main actors, Roy Snyder, Robert Shaw, and Richard, I'll say Dreyfuss. I have no idea. Yeah, he's probably famous. I don't know the guy, but I thought he did a pretty good job. His character Hube he had some issues, but I thought he was a legitimately enjoyable character. And there's a lot of decent scenes. I do enjoy that one scene. I remember when I was a kid, the scene bored me, but when they're comparing the scars they have from the pasts, and that one story about the ship sinking and the sharks, I thought it was a well done scene, and that scene's quickly followed by another fight with the shark. I don't know, and of course the ending's pretty fun too. The ship is almost entirely sunk, and it's just like last few seconds, man versus beast, who will win. It's fun. It's not it's not surprising by any means. I'm pretty sure people expected it, but it was pretty fun.
Mm. And
just another note, this is also based off a novel, and I'm not sure how popular the novel is compared to the movie. I'm suspecting maybe 50% of the people who've seen the movie don't know it's based off a book. That's a made-up statistic, but it seems right. I've actually read the book, and the book was, the book is probably actually a little more dry than the movie, but it's still an okay book. But I would say the movie might be, more enjoyable form.
One thing, on our Facebook page, I've been posting a lot of memes and things like that. And there was one that I posted that was Jaws related about the boy in the movie that dies earlier in the film, the Kitno boy. And, it's just like a rest in peace type thing, saying he died on this day 40-something years ago or whatever it was. And I had a bunch of people reply saying he didn't die, or, he didn't die, did he? I'm watching the again, I'm like, he clearly fucking died. He probably has the most memorable death in the movie, to be honest. I would
go that far.
Actually, I won't go that far, because I think Quince is pretty epic, but...
Spoilers. You haven't seen Jazz before.
Yeah. Anywho, but I do enjoy his scene, even though it's kind of only a couple of seconds, where it's kind of like this geyser of blood in the water, but there's multiple parts in the movie where they're clearly referring to him as being dead. Even his mother, when it seems she's just come back from his funeral or something, and she's slapping the chief, saying, "My boy's dead," and she repeats that 2-3 times at least.
I'll be honest, I felt bad for the sheriff then, because obviously it's the mayor's fault, so that's just disappointing.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the mayor, I forget who plays that guy. I sort of enjoyed. It's been a long time since I've seen this, and I watched it earlier today. I enjoyed after the sheriff's son was, part of an incident regarding the shark. I enjoyed how he sort of turned around and said, "Hey, I'm sorry about this. You can do what you have to do to take care of this." So I sort of enjoyed that characterization. Otherwise, he was an entirely unlikable character.
But the one thing that people say about this movie is that, it had a lot of people scared to go to the beach, and I guess maybe back in its earlier days, but to be honest, it never stopped me from going to the beach when I was young.
I've been to the beach once in my life, so... Although, obviously, this movie did amazing in the theaters, so I know there's a whole generation of people who legitimately had that fear.
So this is a movie that I kind of struggled between what score to give it. I was kind of tossing up between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I think I'm going to settle with a 7. And I think the whole "it's such a classic" thing is a thing that's almost tripping me up. And I'm trying to not let that influence my rating, because generally I tend to give my ratings based on how much overall I just enjoyed the movie, and partially maybe the replayability factor. Like, how often do I want to go back and actually watch this movie? And with Jaws, it's not... I enjoy the movie, but I don't necessarily ever feel like, hey, I want to go back 2 years later and watch it again. Like, it's a movie that I don't care to revisit all that often. So, I guess I'm going to stick with a 7.
I think part of the issue with this movie is it's a 2-hour long movie. It's a long movie, and it certainly feels like it. I really do think the movie is pretty good once it's just the 3 main characters on the pretty small boat. I mean, it feels pretty claustrophobic at times, and I really do appreciate that when you're moving from the back of the boat to the front of the boat, just shimmying along the side. I enjoy that. I never actually been on a boat to my knowledge, so, but it sounds fun. Assuming the shark's not chasing you. I enjoy quite a bit about the movie, but overall enjoyment of the movie is not particularly high. I appreciate what this movie does, but it's not a great movie. I would give this a 6.5, and I would probably round it up to an average rating of a 7. But when it comes to 70s movies, I can think of so many more. Like I remember when we spoke about Carrie. I said that would make my top 50 70s horror, and Jaws also would definitely not make my top 50. So, yeah, it's okay. You can watch it every 8 years and be happy in life. So,
well, I'm just glad to see that you've given it a higher rating than Sharknado.
yes, yeah, I was just trying to lead some suspense. Jaws is probably better than Sharknado.
It is. Yeah.
It's
There's
probably.
no probablys. It is.
Just a bit. Now, if Spielberg had directed Sharknado, we might be talking about a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I actually have one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a deeply controversial question. Is Jaws a horror movie?
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that often gets debated by both fans of the genre and those who are not fans. And every now and again on IMDb, they throw horror in and then people get angry and then it gets taken off as a genre. So it's one of those borderline movies. And that's probably a reason for its success. If it had been more of a horror than it was a drama, I highly doubt this movie would have been as successful as it turned out to be.
It's probably more a thriller than a horror, but still, I mean, you've got this shark who's bigger than any kind of normal shark, and clearly killing people in some violent ways. So I think the fact that the shark is so huge, to the point where it becomes a monster-type character, I think it's fair to say it can be considered a horror movie.
And I also want to throw in Quint's death scene. I thought was, obviously, most people have seen this movie, and if they haven't seen this movie, they're probably not going to see this movie. Quint's death scene I thought was pretty fantastic, and I wouldn't say necessarily surprising, because after like an hour of just these 3 guys, somebody has to give. But I know it does take place pretty close to the end of the movie, so I thought it was pretty fun, pretty suspenseful, and I know the whole ship sinking. This guy has to shoot a tank in a shark's mouth. I had a fun time with it.